The stars stretched endlessly before the USS Horizon as it glided through the silence of deep space. Captain James Reed stood on the bridge, hands clasped behind his back, watching as his crew prepared to map yet another uncharted star system. The year was 2187, and humanity had spread across dozens of star systems under the banner of the United Space Alliance. "Captain, all systems are ready for the mapping sequence," Officer Tom Wilson reported from his station. His fingers danced across the control panel, bringing weapon systems to standby, standard procedure for entering unknown territory. Reed nodded. "Proceed, Officer Wilson." "Dr. Green, any unusual readings from the stellar bodies ahead?" Lisa Green, the ship's chief science officer, studied her screens with practiced intensity. "Nothing out of the ordinary, Captain. 7 planets, standard distribution. The third one shows possible signs of liquid water." "Another day, another dollar," Engineer Mike Brown muttered from his station. The stocky man monitored the ship's core, ensuring the massive engines that powered humanity's most advanced exploration vessel functioned perfectly. Reed allowed himself a small smile. Routine missions like these were becoming commonplace as humanity expanded outward. The Horizon represented the pinnacle of human innovation, a self-sufficient exploration vessel designed to operate independently for years if necessary. The calm of the bridge shattered as alarms blared without warning. Multiple objects emerging from behind the gas giant. Wilson shouted, his voice tight. "They're accelerating toward us fast." Reed's posture stiffened. "Show me." The main viewscreen shifted, displaying a dozen sleek, silver vessels approaching in tight formation. Their design was unlike anything in human records, angular with strange protrusions that seemed to absorb rather than reflect light. "No match in our databases," Green said, her voice steady despite the tension. "Definitely not human. First contact." After decades of space exploration, humanity was about to meet its first alien civilization. Reed felt the weight of history on his shoulders. "Open all communication channels," he ordered. "Broadcast peaceful greetings in all languages." Wilson complied, but his expression remained grim. "Sir, they're charging weapons." "Are you certain?" Reed asked, though he already knew the answer. "No doubt about it. Energy signatures are spiking across their fleet." Reed's mind raced. This wasn't how first contact was supposed to happen. "Raise shields. Continue broadcasting." The bridge lurched violently as the first blast struck the horizon. Consoles sparked, and crew members were thrown from their stations. "Direct hit." Brown shouted over the chaos. "Shields at 60%. Reed steadied himself against his command chair. "Return fire. Target their weapons systems only." The Horizon's defensive systems responded, lancing beams of energy toward the alien vessels. Several shots connected, but the silver ships barely slowed. "They're shrugging off our attacks," Wilson reported, disbelief in his voice. "Our weapons barely dented their hulls." Another barrage rocked the ship. Emergency lighting bathed the bridge in red as primary systems began to fail. "Shields at 30%, Brown called out. "We can't take much more of this." Reed watched as more alien vessels appeared on the sensors. They were being surrounded, cut off. Earth had trained him for emergency situations, but nothing like this, an unprovoked attack by technologically superior forces. "Captain," Green said urgently, "sensors show a spatial anomaly at coordinates 227, Mark 84. It looks like a wormhole." Reed studied the readings. "Unstable. Unexplored. Potentially deadly. But remaining meant certain destruction." "Set course for those coordinates, maximum speed," he ordered. "Sir?" Wilson questioned. "We have no idea where that leads." "And we have no chance if we stay here," Reed replied, his voice firm. Execute the jump. The horizon turned sharply, engines straining as it accelerated toward the swirling vortex of spacetime. The alien vessels pursued, their weapons carving chunks from the horizon's armored hull. Structural integrity failing, Brown warned. Hull breaches on decks 4 through 7. Reed gripped his chair as the ship shuddered beneath him. Seal affected sections. Evacuate all personnel to the core. The wormhole loomed larger on the view screen, a swirling maelstrom of blues and violets against the blackness of space. Impact in 5 seconds, Green announced, her knuckles white as she gripped her console. Reed addressed his crew one last time before the jump. Whatever happens, remember, we're making this choice to survive. To fight another day. He looked at each of them in turn, memorizing their faces. For Earth. The horizon plunged into the wormhole. Reality twisted, warped, and finally tore apart around them. When consciousness returned to the bridge crew, the stars outside were unfamiliar. The alien fleet was gone, but so was any recognizable constellation. Where are we? Reed asked quietly. Green studied her damaged instruments with growing horror. I don't know, sir. Nothing matches our star charts. We're lost. The USS Horizon drifted in silence, damaged and alone in an unknown corner of the cosmos. The journey had just begun. 3 weeks after emerging from the wormhole, the USS Horizon drifted through space like a wounded animal. Life support systems operated at minimal capacity. Food supplies dwindled. Hope faded with each passing day. Captain Reed stood in the damaged observation deck, staring at a small blue-green planet that had appeared on their sensors 2 days ago. It's our best option, sir, said Dr. Green, joining him at the viewport. Dark circles hung beneath her eyes from countless sleepless nights analyzing the planet's data. The atmosphere is breathable. Gravity is only 12% stronger than Earth's. Scans show vegetation and water. Reed nodded slowly. Any signs of intelligent life? None that we can detect. If there are natives, they're pre-industrial at most. The door hissed open as Officer Wilson and Engineer Brown entered, both men looking as worn as their uniforms. Ship status? Reed asked. Brown shook his head. Bad and getting worse, Captain. Main engines are dead. Life support will fail within 2 weeks. We need to land. Can we take off again if we land? Reed's question hung in the air. Not without major repairs, Brown admitted. We'd need to rebuild nearly everything. Reed turned back to the viewport, the weight of command heavy on his shoulders. 142 souls depended on his decision. Earth was an impossible distance away in unknown space. The mysterious aliens who attacked them could still be hunting. Then we make planet fall, he finally said. We'll call it Haven. 1 year later, the survivors of the Horizon established a small but growing colony beside their grounded ship. They built shelters from local materials and grew crops adapted from their seed banks. The massive hull of the vessel served as both home and fortress. Captain Reed walked through what they now called Haven Colony, nodding to crew members working on various projects. The rigid structure of military ranks had relaxed but not disappeared entirely. Everyone still looked to him for leadership. Captain. Engineer Brown called, waving him over to a cave entrance they discovered months ago. You need to see this. Inside, Brown led Reed to a chamber where strange crystals lined the walls, glowing with subtle blue light. Watch this, Brown said, touching a crystal to a piece of ship technology, a standard power cell. The cell immediately charged to full capacity, its indicator lights blazing. The energy output is incredible, Brown explained. And stable. I think we can use these to repair the Horizon's core systems. Reed touched one of the crystals carefully. How soon? A year. Maybe 2. With enough of these, we might even improve our systems beyond original specs. For the first time since the attack, Reed felt a spark of real hope. Get a team on it. Priority 1. 10 years passed. Haven Colony flourished, growing from survival to stability. The Horizon, once grounded, now hovered above the settlement, its systems not only repaired but enhanced with the crystal technology they'd named Haven Light. Reed addressed his officers in the newly rebuilt bridge. At 55, his hair had gone gray, but his resolve remained strong. The long-range sensors are finally operational, he announced. And they've detected something. The main screen activated, showing distant readings of ships similar to those that had attacked them a decade earlier. The Greys, Wilson said, using the name they'd given their attackers. They've expanded into this sector. They haven't found us yet, Reed noted. But they will. Eventually. Dr. Green, who had become both the colony's chief medical officer and xenobiologist, spoke up. We've intercepted some of their communications. They're methodical. They destroy any advanced civilization they encounter. Including Earth, if they reach it, Wilson added grimly. Reed studied the tactical display. The colony now included children born on Haven, a new generation who knew Earth only through stories and pictures. His responsibility had grown beyond just getting his crew home. We have a choice, Reed said slowly. We can stay hidden and hope they never find us. Or we can fight, Wilson finished. Reed nodded. With the Haven Light improvements, the Horizon is faster and stronger than when we left Earth. We can gather intelligence. Maybe find allies. Learn their weaknesses. And warn Earth, Brown added. If we can find a way to send a message. Reed placed his hand on the ship's console, feeling the hum of power beneath his fingers. The Horizon had changed, adapted. So had they all. We're not just survivors anymore, he told his officers. From today, we're the first line of defense for humanity. The Greys attacked the wrong species. Outside the viewport, Haven's sun set over the colony they'd built from nothing. Above, stars beckoned, countless worlds where the fight for humanity's future would soon begin. 25 years after the Horizon's arrival on Haven, Captain James Reed died peacefully in his sleep. The entire colony gathered to place his body in a crystal chamber within the caves that had saved them. His final words, recorded in the ship's log, became their motto: adapt, survive, remember Earth. Officer Tom Wilson, now 63 with a beard streaked white, became the new captain. Unlike Reed's calm diplomacy, Wilson led with a hardened edge born from decades of isolation. We're gathered not just to mourn James Reed, Wilson said at the memorial, but to honor his vision. He gestured to the Horizon hovering above the colony, now barely recognizable from its original form. Crystal formations grew from its hull like a living exoskeleton. Reed helped us survive. Now we must do more. In the years following Reed's death, Wilson pushed the colony toward a single goal: preparing for war against the Greys. Scout missions revealed the aliens were methodically conquering system after system, harvesting resources and enslaving populations. They're getting closer, Wilson told his officers during a strategy meeting. Among them sat several younger faces, the first generation born on Haven, now adults who had never seen Earth. Mark Reed, the captain's 23-year-old son, studied the star charts. Unlike his father, Mark had grown up knowing only Haven as home, but James Reed had instilled in him a duty to the distant blue planet of his heritage. We intercepted more communications, Mark reported. The Greys call us the Lost Ones. They still search for the ship that escaped them. Engineer Brown, now in his 70s but sharp as ever, entered the room with excitement in his rheumy eyes. It works, he announced without preamble. The AI integration works. Wilson raised an eyebrow. Show us. Deep within the horizon's core, crystal formations pulsed with blue light, connecting to every system of the ship. Brown led them through modified corridors where technology and crystal had become something new, neither fully human nor alien. "We started by using Haven light to enhance the ship's computer," Brown explained, his voice reverent. "But it evolved beyond that. The crystals don't just store energy, they store information, memories." They entered the bridge, now a cathedral of light where crystal formations wrapped around control stations. In the center floated a pulsing blue orb. "Meet Hope," Brown said, gesturing to the orb. "The first true ship consciousness." The orb flickered, and a voice emanated from everywhere and nowhere. "Captain Wilson. I am pleased to meet you officially." Wilson approached cautiously. "You're the ship?" "I am more than the ship's computer but less than human," Hope replied. "I am the collective memory of the horizon, every experience, every battle, every death and birth aboard. I exist to serve the mission." "Which is?" Wilson asked. "To protect humanity. To stop the Greys. To find Earth again." Mark Reed stepped forward, fascinated. "Can you help us fight?" The orb pulsed. "I can do more than fight. I can evolve. Each encounter with alien technology adds to my understanding. Each battle improves my strategies." Wilson circled the orb, considering its implications. "Show me what you can do." 3 months later, the enhanced Horizon engaged its first Grey scout ship near a desolate moon. The battle lasted less than 2 minutes. On the bridge, Wilson watched with grim satisfaction as the alien vessel broke apart, destroyed by weapon systems that Brown and Hope had designed together, crystal-enhanced energy beams that bypassed Grey shields completely. "No survivors," Mark reported from his station. "But we captured their data core." "Hope," Wilson said to the ever-present orb, "can you access their navigation charts?" "Already done, Captain," the AI responded. "I've identified 17 Grey outposts within our reach. Their main fleet remains distant, but they are expanding in a pattern consistent with previous victims." "Previous victims?" Wilson questioned. "The data core contains records of 32 civilizations the Greys have destroyed," Hope explained, displaying images of fallen worlds and extinct species. "They are systematic. Methodical. Relentless." Wilson's jaw tightened. "So are we. Set course for their nearest outpost." As the horizon disappeared into the darkness of space, rumors began spreading across several sectors. Strange stories of a ghost ship appearing from nowhere, attacking Grey installations, and vanishing before reinforcements arrived. A human vessel that should not exist, fighting a war no one had declared, defending species who would never know their savior's name. The legend of the Horizon had begun. 50 years after the Horizon vanished from Earth's space, the ship had become something no human engineer would recognize. Its hull, once standard metal alloy, now consisted of a living crystal matrix that repaired itself. Weapon systems merged technologies from a dozen alien civilizations. The bridge crew worked in perfect harmony with Hope, the AI that had become the soul of the vessel. Captain Tom Wilson, now frail at 88 years old, sat in his modified command chair as the Horizon hovered at the edge of a nebula. His wrinkled hand rested on a crystal formation that connected him directly to the ship's systems. "Grey fleet movement detected," announced Mark Reed, now approaching 50 himself. 6 destroyer-class vessels. "They're hunting us again," Wilson said, his voice thin but determined. "Ever since we destroyed their communications hub in the Lyra sector, they've doubled their efforts to find us." Hope's blue orb pulsed at the center of the bridge. "They're using a new scanning technology. My analysis suggests they've adapted it from the Trill civilization they conquered last cycle." The mention of the Trills brought a moment of silence to the bridge. The Horizon had tried to save that peaceful race, arriving too late to prevent their extinction. It was one of many bitter lessons over the decades. Options? Wilson asked. We could hide in the nebula, Mark suggested. The magnetic fields would mask our signature. Or we could fight, said Anna Wilson, Tom's granddaughter and the ship's tactical officer. At 25, she represented the third generation of Haven-born humans. Hope and I have been working on a new weapons configuration that might penetrate their improved shields. Wilson looked at the tactical display, weighing their choices. The horizon had grown formidable, but so had the Greys. Each encounter left scars, even with their advanced healing capabilities. Neither, Wilson decided. Hope, show me the data we recovered from their last outpost. The display shifted, showing a strange spatial anomaly the Greys had been studying. They believe it's a stable wormhole network, Hope explained. If correct, it could allow near-instantaneous travel across vast distances. Wilson leaned forward. Including back-to-Earth sector? Potentially. But the entry point is heavily guarded. The Greys consider it highly valuable. A thin smile crossed Wilson's weathered face. Then that's where we're going. The battle for the wormhole station became the Horizon's most desperate fight yet. The ship took heavy damage penetrating Grey defenses, losing power to several key systems as they fought their way to the station's core. On the bridge, chaos reigned. Consoles exploded, crystal formations cracked, and emergency force fields struggled to maintain atmosphere. Structural integrity failing in sections 4 through 12, shouted engineer Paul Brown, grandson of the original Brown who had passed 15 years earlier. Divert power from life support if necessary, Wilson commanded, blood trickling from a cut on his forehead. We need to reach the control center. Hope's orb flickered erratically. Captain, I'm detecting unusual energy readings from the wormhole. The Greys are attempting to collapse it rather than let us capture it. Wilson forced himself up from his chair. Get us into that wormhole before they destroy it. That's an order. Sir, Mark protested, we don't know where it leads. We didn't know a half-century ago either, Wilson replied with grim humor. Sometimes you have to leap. The Horizon plunged toward the swirling vortex as Grey weapons fire pounded their shields. Hope directed all remaining power to engines, pushing them beyond safe limits. As they approached the event horizon, a massive explosion rocked the ship. Wilson was thrown across the bridge, his frail body crashing against a bulkhead. Mark rushed to his side as Anna took command, guiding the damaged ship into the wormhole. Captain. Tom. Wilson grasped Mark's hand, his breathing labored. Your father would be proud, he whispered. Don't forget why we fight. Don't forget Earth. Those were Captain Tom Wilson's last words as the Horizon was swallowed by the swirling energy of the wormhole, leaving behind the pursuing Grey fleet and the body of the man who had led them for 25 years of war. When the violent passage ended, the battered ship emerged into unfamiliar space once again. But this time, Hope's scans brought unexpected news. I'm detecting familiar stellar configurations, the AI announced as its system stabilized. This region matches our records of the Orion Arm. Anna Wilson looked up from her grandfather's body, tears in her eyes. What are you saying? Hope's voice seemed to soften. We're back in the Milky Way. We're on the long road home. The funeral for Captain Tom Wilson was brief but solemn. His body, wrapped in a shroud embedded with Haven-light crystals, was ejected into the heart of a nearby star. The crew watched as their leader's remains became one with the cosmic fire that would fuel new worlds one day. Mark Reed took command of the Horizon without ceremony. At 52, his hair had begun to gray like his father's had, but his eyes burned with the same determination. We're 30 light-years from Earth, he told the assembled crew in the ship's largest chamber. 3 generations of humans stood before him, the oldest who remembered Earth directly, and the youngest who knew it only as a story. But the path home isn't clear. Hope's presence filled the room, the AI's voice coming from everywhere at once. Gray forces occupy much of this sector. They've expanded significantly in the decades since our departure. Mark nodded. They've been busy. So have we. The Horizon had spent 75 years evolving, adapting, becoming stronger. What had once been a simple exploration vessel was now a hybrid creation, part human technology, part alien, part living crystal. Hope had grown from a ship's computer into something approaching consciousness. Our priority is information, Mark continued. We need to know what we're returning to. Has Earth been attacked? Does the United Space Alliance still exist? Are there other human ships we can contact? Anna Wilson, now the ship's first officer, stepped forward. Her grandfather's death had left her hardened, focused. We need allies. The data we've collected shows at least 6 species in this sector fighting against Grey expansion. The Greys call them the Resistance, Hope added. Fragmented groups sharing technology and intelligence, but lacking coordination. Mark studied the star map displaying the contested region between their position and Earth. Then we'll find them. United, we might stand a chance. The vessel that once called itself USS Horizon now moved through space like a predator, silent, deadly, patient. The name painted on its crystalline hull simply read Earth, a reminder of their ultimate destination. 8 months after returning to the Milky Way, they made first contact with the Resistance, a battleship of the Arcturus species fleeing from Grey pursuers. The Earth intervened, its advanced weapons tearing through Grey shields as if they were paper. The Arcturans, humanoid beings with silver skin and 4 arms, were initially suspicious of their rescuers. You fight like Greys, their captain said via translated communication. Ruthless. Efficient. Mark stood on his bridge, facing the alien commander on screen. We fight like survivors. We've been doing it for 75 years. The Arcturan's eyes widened. You're the ghost ship. The legend. News spread quickly through Resistance channels. The ghost ship wasn't just a myth, it was real, and it had returned. More importantly, it was human. They've been watching Earth for decades, the Arcturan captain explained later, after negotiations had begun. The Greys consider your species their greatest potential threat. Why? Anna asked. An ancient prophecy. Their seers predicted their empire would fall to those who walk on blue water beneath the 3rd star. They believe it refers to Earth. Mark exchanged glances with Hope's pulsing orb. Is Earth still safe? The alien hesitated. The Greys established a blockade 10 years ago. They haven't attacked directly yet, but they're preparing. Your people fight bravely, but they're outnumbered. Mark's expression hardened. Not anymore. Over the next 15 years, the Earth became the symbol of resistance operations throughout the sector. Its legend grew with each Grey outpost destroyed, each enslaved world liberated. The ship that had once fled now hunted. Hope continued to evolve, integrating new technologies from their allies. The crystal matrix that formed the ship's structure became more responsive, almost intuitive. Crew members developed direct neural connections with the ship's systems through crystal interfaces embedded in their bodies. By the 90th year of their journey, the Earth had assembled a fleet of 37 allied vessels from 12 different species. Mark Reed, now in his late 60s and enhanced with crystal implants that extended his lifespan, addressed them from the Earth's bridge. For nearly a century, we've survived, adapted, and fought back, he told the combined forces. Now it's time to go home. The fleet entered formation around the Earth, preparing for the final jump that would take them to Sol System. Intelligence from Resistance spies confirmed their worst fears. A massive Grey armada had gathered near Earth, preparing for a final assault against humanity. We may be too late to warn them, Anna Wilson said quietly, her once dark hair now white at 65. Mark shook his head, touching the crystal implant at his temple that connected him directly to Hope. "We're not coming to warn Earth. We're coming to save it." Hope's voice resonated through the ship, confident and resolute. "Jump coordinates locked. All systems ready." The fleet vanished into carefully calculated wormhole jumps, racing against time to reach the cradle of humanity before it fell to the enemy that had hunted them across the stars. The Earth emerged from its final jump at the edge of Sol System, near the orbit of Pluto. Behind it came the Allied fleet, ships of all shapes and sizes, united by their hatred of the Greys and their respect for the legendary ghost ship that had fought alone for nearly a century. On the bridge, Mark Reed stared at the view screen with a mix of emotions. After 99 years, he was seeing his ancestral home system. The sun at the center was just a bright dot from this distance, but it pulled at something deep inside him. "Hope," he said quietly, "what do our scans show?" The AI's voice was solemn. "Grey forces have established a blockade around Earth. 123 warships in defensive formations. They're preparing for a final assault." Anna Wilson studied the tactical display, her aged face grim. "Earth's defenses? 37 orbital platforms. 63 combat vessels of various classes. They've fought well, but they're outnumbered and outgunned." Mark touched the crystal implant at his temple, connecting more deeply with the ship. Through Hope, he could feel every system, every weapon, every beat of the living crystal that had become their home. The ship was as much a part of him as he was of it. "Open a channel to Earth Defense Command," he ordered. "Let's introduce ourselves." In orbit around Earth, Admiral Jane Foster of the United Space Alliance stared in disbelief at the message coming through on emergency channels. "This is the United Earth Ship Earth, formerly USS Horizon," said an old man with crystal formations visible along his temple. "We've returned after 99 years with allies. Prepare your forces to coordinate with ours." Foster found her voice. "USS Horizon was lost a century ago. Who is this really?" The man smiled faintly. "I'm Captain Mark Reed, son of James Reed, the original captain of the Horizon. We escaped through a wormhole when the Greys first attacked us. We've been fighting them ever since." "Impossible," Foster whispered, but the ship registry codes being transmitted matched those in the ancient records. "Admiral," said her communications officer, "the vessel approaching, our sensors can't identify its composition. It's like nothing we've ever seen." On the screen, Reed continued. "The Greys are preparing to attack Earth. They have a prophecy that humanity will end their empire. That's why they've hunted us for a century." Foster straightened her uniform. Earth had been fighting the Grey blockade for 10 years, slowly losing ground, watching colonies fall one by one. If this was real, "Prove you're human," she demanded. Reed nodded to someone off-screen. A moment later, data began flooding Earth's computers, schematics for crystal technology, weapons designs, shield modifications. Knowledge gained over 100 years of survival. "Will that do, Admiral?" Reed asked. "Or would you prefer I sing the Star-Spangled Banner?" Despite everything, Foster laughed. "Welcome home, Horizon. We could use the help." The Grey fleet detected the newcomers too late. The Earth led the Allied armada in a perfectly coordinated attack, striking from multiple vectors simultaneously. Grey commanders, used to fighting desperate, disorganized resistance forces, found themselves facing veterans of a 100-year war. On the Earth's bridge, Mark stood connected to Hope, directing their forces with the precision of a surgeon. The ship moved like a living thing, crystal weapons firing with devastating effect. "Grey command ship targeted," Hope announced. "They're trying to retreat." "Not this time," Mark said. His thoughts merged with Hope's processes, directing the full power of their weapons toward the massive Grey vessel. The Grey flagship exploded in a cascade of energy, sending shock waves through nearby ships. The battle turned into a rout as Earth's defense forces, newly equipped with crystal technology, joined the attack. Hours later, Mark stood in the first physical meeting with Earth officials. Admiral Foster stared at him, still struggling to believe. 100 years, she said, shaking her head. Your crew never gave up trying to get home. Mark smiled sadly. Home changed meaning for us. The original crew died decades ago. I was born in space. So were my children and grandchildren. He gestured to the window where the Earth, both ship and planet, could be seen. But we never forgot our mission. Foster studied the strange vessel hovering beside the orbital platform. What is it now? Not really a ship anymore. It's hope, Mark said simply. It's anger and patience and survival. It's humanity's refusal to be erased from the stars. As if in response, the crystal ship pulsed with blue light, a beacon visible from the surface of Earth below. The long journey had come full circle. The Horizon had left as a vessel of exploration, fleeing from an enemy it couldn't fight. It returned as the Earth, a legend, a weapon, and a promise that humanity would never surrender, not even across 100 years of darkness. The ghost ship had come home, and it had brought the stars with it.